Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Colonization series, where we are about to start colonizing our 7th planetoid. I have already made the selection of which one is next, but I wanted to go through the process to explain my rationale for choosing the planetoid that I did. We have already colonized 6 planetoids, with only 3 remaining. The closest alligator to the boat is Frustato. Well, Frustato is home to the temporal tear opener, so I figured I'd save this planetoid for last. Figured it'd be nice to open up the temporal tear, maybe send a few dupes through it, as a nice closing to the series. Next up, we have Blastora. Well, Blastora is going to be a pain in the tuchus. The only thing on this planetoid is magma and a niobium biome. There are no vents and geysers, save a niobium volcano. There's not even any meteors that we could possibly use for any sort of life sustainment, which means everything that planetoid needs to sustain life, we're going to actually have to ship from Fernial. And then finally, the planetoid that I chose for our 7th colonization is that of Regolato. Regolato? Regolato. I don't know, tomato. This planetoid is going to be somewhat of a pain as well, but I thought was still the best of the 3 options to go with next. To start off with, it does have a cool steam vent, which means it has water, and where there's water, we can sustain some life. In addition, it also has 120,000 lux worth of light, which means solar panels going to be on the menu and we'll have plenty of power. And then, not only does it have that cool steam vent, it also has a tundra biome, which means I can melt that ice for even more water. Unfortunately, it is going to take quite a bit of work. While the planetoid is not very deep, it is pretty wide, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of regolith. Additionally, the planetoid also gets some hard-hitting meteors in the form of iron meteors and regolith meteors. The ice meteors aren't so bad and don't break a lot of stuff, but the iron meteors for sure hit like a truck. But that's where we find the start of this episode, where we already have the ESS Colonizer and the ESS Explorer in orbit, and I have a second rover already hard at work. I promised him bonus points if he could find his old friend from the rover we landed here quite some time ago. Now luckily the planetoid's ceiling is pretty high, way up here, which means we're going to have plenty of room to land and take off a rocket without impacting the planetoid itself. The bad news is, well, all this regolith is in the way of any sort of minerals that we could use to build ladders. For that, we're going to have to go all the way down to this mafic rock. I suppose the other good news is if I did want to run a water sieve, we have plenty of filtration medium. The good boy is already doing a great job, but before we can go down a little bit further, we're going to deconstruct the landers. We're going to use that for our rocket platform. And I suppose I could still use some of the igneous rock that we have inside of the rocket in order to build the scaffolding to get up and down from the rocket platform. But this isn't too bad either. Look at the neutronium sticking out way up here. And now that we have the landers deconstructed, we can start getting rid of the regolith 2 rows at a time. Give me a few minutes to let rover work, get some stuff set up, and then I'll land our dupe. Look at this, we found the first rover. Wake up, buddy. I've got a new battery for you. Oh, that's right. Clay won't give us batteries for rover. And rover just screwed up the whole operation. When digging out a tile here, rover decided to jump up instead of just moving to the side, which means I now have to land the duplicate, because no more work is going to be done here. There's nothing within range for rover to be able to build a ladder to go downwards. That's a bad rover. Let's go ahead and get Josh Manchester in a suit. This Atmos suit has 63% durability with 64 kilos worth of oxygen. This one has 77% with 68 kilos worth of oxygen. So this is our clear winner. No, Josh, you're not going to sleep? I suppose it's better they get a good night's sleep now. Oh, apparently it's too bright there. That's because Llama's standing in the way. Move over, Llama. Josh doesn't need your nightlight. And no matter what, Llama just keeps running back, which means Josh Manchester is going to get the unrested debuff, which means they're going to get minus 10% immunity and plus 10% stress. Not too big a deal. They still get the maximum aptitude, which removes 25% stress. This is why you're on space missions by yourself most of the time, Llama. Josh is in the suit and we instantly pause, and we do that to conserve as much oxygen in that suit as possible. Then we put Josh in the Trailblazer module. Click deploy. Did I miss a meteor shower or something here? Where did all this extra regolith come from? There is no meteor shower right now. I call suspect on that one. Luckily, there's still plenty of room for Josh to land. We'll instantly get all of that dug out. Well, where are these meteors coming from? Oh, now another meteor shower shows up. It wasn't on the star map. We had just had a meteor shower a few cycles ago before I started recording. But I let it pass because, well, I wasn't going to land a dupe in the middle of a meteor shower. So much for that. Oh, watch out for that one, Josh. Now, I can't clean too much of this up as much as I would like to because time is of the essence. Josh's Atmos suit is already down to 63 kilos, but I need some of this mafic rock. I know it's bright. I know. And with just those few digs, we now have over 3 tons. Let's plan where the width is going to be. I'll pretend put down the rocket platform, let's say here, which means I want the ladders to be in this tile where this 500 kilo regolith is. And to save time, we'll start by going every other ladder. In fact, what I'm going to do is get Rover down first and then start to build these ladders up. And then I got to figure out where 35 tiles high ends. It looks like where the regolith stacks from that weird neutronium outcropping. So 35 is right there. And with it down, we can then double check. 37 tiles, beautiful. Almost there. Then we just got to build up to where we think the Spacefarer module is. And with Rover's help, this is going decent. And we still have 50 kilos of oxygen to spare. Uh-oh, watch out for those meteors. We have ordered the colonizer to land. Here it comes. Oh, beautiful touchdown. And that looks like I was off by a couple on the ladders. No big deal. I can now start filling in the rest. And then we start with all the standard fare. Deconstructing the rocket control station, putting in the wheel, and then adding our carbon dioxide vent. And since we have a lot more dupes now, let's start the dig down. Since this ladder is so long and this light is absolutely treacherous at 120,000 lux at its max, means these dupes are going to get sunburned if we're not careful. So it's normally pretty smart to at least put a couple of tiles above a long ladder run like this to protect the dupes for as much time as they will spend on this one tile. Oh yeah, as we can already see, Josh has minor radiation sickness and sunburn. The sunburn is plus 20% stress, the minor radiation sickness is minus 30% bathroom use speed. And while the 2 tiles of igneous rock completely stops the light from coming through, it does not stop the radiation, but it's down to about 100 rads per cycle. We will build one more right there, and now we're down to 40 rads per cycle. Not shabby. Now, as we build the ladder down, I am going to be leveling this, but before I do, I want to make sure I move some of this nice steel that we have to where it still stays accessible. So I'm just going to relocate it down here, and then we'll continue our efforts with the Great Dig. I think step 1 is going to be getting rid of all the regolith. Step 2 is going to be building a whole lot of solar panels. Well, I say all that, but I still need to put an infrastructure in this place. So we're going to say step 0 is putting in the exosuit forge and everything else we need. In fact, maybe we just put that set up here. Oh, look at this. This is 16,000 calories, which means at least at one point there were some space doggos, but I don't see any of them anymore. Maybe it's because this regolith was too cold? Apparently that's not it, because space puppies, aka the shovels, actually have a comfort range from minus 100 to 400. But even using a wide wrangle, where you can normally see a couple, I don't see any. Yet there's more eggshells over here. Did the shovels go extinct? Our exosuit forge is in and ready to repair any Atmos suits. Unfortunately, there's not much of an environment here. There is some carbon dioxide, but it's not going to be enough, especially considering it's escaping to the vacuum of space in order to keep this jumbo battery cool. We'll eventually have to deconstruct the jumbo battery and make a new one, unless I can get some of this ice to melt. If the ice melts, then the machines will have an environment. You can see there is a background here, so the water would end up staying. And as we can see, the ice is warming thanks to the mafic rock it's sitting on. It's up to minus 9.5. Eventually it will melt and provide some cooling for this equipment. Now on to more digs. and I'm going to start shipping over quite a bit of glass. In fact, I'll put another level right here, and this is where I'll put the payload opener. And that ice finally melted, bringing that jumbo battery's temp down about 30 degrees instantly. I also put a nice mesh tile here because I wanted the water to drop, which it did. Unfortunately, it refroze into ice, but eventually this ice will warm up too, and when it does, it'll put a nice layer of water across these machines too. Oh my goodness, we've got more meteors. I don't know if it's just the timing or that Regalado gets hit all the time. This is 3 meteor showers in the past probably 15 cycles. Not going to be too big of a deal, but I am going to end up repairing a lot of stuff until I get the meteor protection in. Over on Fernial, we are starting to get our initial shipments ready. I've got glass being loaded up, which means it's time to change the destination from Drapona. We're going to go to Regalado, which has a launch cost of 90, not shabby. And here goes our first shipment. And since we're producing an absolute astronomical amount of rad bolts at 38,837 rads per cycle from this one generator, and it's mirrored with this one for a total of about 8,000 rad bolts per cycle. For those of you curious, we're up to over 1,100 shine bugs, and they're still not cramped, which means that number is going to keep going up until the room size exceeds how much space the critters need. Let's go ahead and get out of that overlay because it was crushing my frames. That's going to be another issue that we're going to have to contend with. Notice this regolith meter came down and it was over 300 degrees, which means it heats these tiles up pretty significantly. As long as we can protect the stuff down here, I'm not too worried about it. Oh, it's still happening. Now to start off this build, I'm literally just going to build a giant tunnel all the way across, and because most of it's regolith, a lot of it is just going to come crashing down, where the dupes will sit there and continue to dig it out. The exception is where the mafic rock is. For instance, here and even here. That regolith will stay up there. We'll end up contending with that in a little while. I think our primary focus in this episode is going to be getting the power in and then the meteor protection, because without it, we can't do much else here. Oh, there's a shovel egg. I do have some steel, but I have no obsidian. And the reason why this is important is because shovels can burrow through many materials. Obsidian and steel are a couple of the ones that they can't. So you want to always put them in a nice little steel and obsidian box. And I think that is definitely where we're going to get our food from on this planetoid. It's been a while since I've done shovels, but we clearly have enough regolith to feed a few of them for quite a long time. Which means I need to get some obsidian sent over so I can make them a ranch. I'll just go with 5 tons of obsidian. And to no one's surprise, we're having another meteor shower. This is going to be complicated. Looking at the description of the planetoid, it does say it has frequent meteor showers. Our glass is starting to come in, but I don't know if I can put those solar panels down yet until I get some protection. And that protection is going to come in the form of bunker doors because, well, I need them to open and close so that I can use the power coming from the solar panels. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, this is going to take a lot of steel. You know, the planetoid description says we're supposed to get iron meteors, regolith meteors, and icy meteors. But so far, 5 meteor showers and all we keep getting is more regolith. Oh, look at these pockets of oxygen down here. Our obsidian is starting to ship and I'm getting our steel loaded up. I'm going to start off with a full 20 tons. We're up to almost 350 tons on Fernial, so it's not going to be too big of a deal either way. I'm also going to need some super coolant and quite a bit of it, because I'm also going to have to provide a cooling loop for all the miners. A lot of my interplanetary payloads have landed on the tiles protecting our ladder well. So I'm actually going to move the targeting beacon over a couple of tiles, because as it stands, all those payloads are unreachable. An exciting discovery in our digs. We have found a nice little point of interest area. Very excited about this. Maybe this is where we build the habitat for the duplicants who live here. The rest of it is going to be all sort of industrial just to be able to protect them. I'm also looking for that cool steam vent because I plan on tying the steam turbine thermal aqua tuner setup that's going to be responsible for keeping it cool. It's also going to be responsible for keeping all this equipment up here cool. Hello, space puppy. Speaking of which, our obsidian is now starting to come in. While our interstellar logistics system is quick, it's not instantaneous. And for as many payloads as we shoot off at once, and for the amount of supplies, it takes a cycle. Our digging is continuing, but more importantly, we're getting to see inside this point of interest building. All right, nothing too exciting. A neural vacillator, a computer desk, a couple more artifacts in the form of a honey jar, and another Rubik's Cube. Unfortunately, most of the dupes are sunburned. It is definitely super bright here. And now that they have to run all this way just to get back up to their safety area, well, bad things happen. We're going to fix it eventually. Our row of bunker doors is starting to go in, and I will keep all of them closed for the time being, other than this one bunker door that's going to be protecting the ladder shaft. Eventually, we'll have enough of power footprint that I'll be able to control these doors based on whenever we're getting an interplanetary payload, or a meteor shower, or something else. But right now is not that time. Our vole habitat is set up. This is a temporary one just to be able to deal and store the voles as we find their eggs and as we're able to get them wrangled. There's a couple more hanging out over here. The funny thing about voles is they start with a lot of calories. We can't see it right now because this one's not groomed. But the long and short of it is, and we're going to get into this a whole lot more later, probably next episode when we start to put in the food and oxygen supply for the dupes who are going to live here. But you can just groom voles. You don't actually have to feed them. And each vole will provide you about 1 duplicant's worth of barbecue per cycle. Incidentally, if your planetoid had enough voles to begin with, you may even be able to live off of wild voles. Well, as long as you had very few duplicants. Another popular strategy is just to tame and feed one vole and have a sort of starvation chamber. You can get a lot of meat that way too. Kiku, why are you guys sleeping out here? Oh, somebody open this door, please. Even when they're not powered, apparently there's a hand crank on these bunker doors and they can get opened. Without any power, they do take quite a long time to open. I'm pretty sure we're about to have a bunch of dupes pee their pants. They are also running out of oxygen. I should have caught that a little sooner instead of running my mouth about the voles. I think it might actually be faster to deconstruct the bunker door. Okay, that's not too bad. We survived. Got a little pee in the bottom of the rocket, but I mean, who doesn't have a little pee in the bottom of their rocket? Now I just have to rebuild the bunker door and make sure I open it as soon as it's constructed. And this whole time I've completely forgotten to put the manual generator in. Luckily for us, there's so much light on this planetoid, it really maxes out these solar panel modules, which has kept the battery pretty full. One thing you might not suspect just by looking at the bunker doors, but you'll notice that the dupes can run across them even when they're open. Speaking of which, we're making decent headway. Even after all of these bunker doors, we still have about 4 tons of steel remaining, and it looks like we're still going to need more. And for the little spot that can't fit a bunker door, I'll just put some bunker tiles, no big deal. We're almost done with our digs. Unfortunately, the bunker door is going to take quite a bit of time, but I have some planning to be able to do, and that has to do with where are we going to put the solar panels, what are we going to do for meteor and debris collection. In addition, we also found the cool steam vent. Might as well dig down into there and get it analyzed. I am going to be sure not to uncork it yet because we are going to be taming it, and uncorking it, while it wouldn't really damage this biome much because, well, it's minus 75-degree ice, it would make it much more of a pain. Oh, look, more meteors for us. I'm starting to put in some of the solar panels. We do have 4 duplicants, but only 1 duplicant at a time can build a bunker door because they're so wide, the next dupe can't reach the one beyond it. So we might as well set up a few different tasks. You might be wondering, why am I putting the solar panels so low? Well, I need to make sure I have enough room up here to be able to put in all of our robo miners, which are going to help make sure the solar panels do not become entombed. There's also going to be another row beneath the solar panels because the power network is going to require a bunch of power transformers as well. Each one of these bunker doors requires 120 watts, and that's before we talk about thermo aqua tuners, liquid pumps, the oxygen machines, the space scanners, and maybe even electric grill, considering no one really wants to eat raw shovel, right? The long story short is these 20 solar panels may look excessive, but to tell you the truth, we're going to be using every bit of that power. All of our super coolant has come in, and we have almost 3 tons of it. But I don't need 3 tons for our next step. I just need a little bit, because I need to make a liquid lock for this cool steam vent. So I'm going to try to drip just a smidge of supercoolant so it lands right here on this tile, and then we'll have that nice soft lock, so then I can vacuum this place out. Now I know many of you have seen me tame a cool steam vent a bunch of times. This time, it's going to be a little different. And the reason why is because the only thing I'm going to be doing with this water coming from the cool steam vent is providing it to an oxygen machine. I'm also going to have a nice beautiful cooling loop, so I don't really care what the temperature of this water is, just so long as I can get it to water. So if I strap a steam turbine on top of it, I can then extract the steam and then allow the steam turbine to condense it. The issue then quickly becomes the fact that the cool steam vent only erupts at 110 C. I needed it at least 125. That's the reason we're going to be putting a thermal aqua tuner in here. Well, that is just a very nice convenient spot to generate more heat to keep that steam as hot as possible. We're going to throw in some contingencies to make sure that the supercoolant stays warm enough, or rather that the thermal aqua tuner stays active enough to keep this area at 125 plus degrees so that the steam turbine can run and provide us power. It's going to take quite a bit of automation and, well, more power, but it's going to work out nicely. Some of the annoyances when you're doing something like this and building all in a row is in examples like this. The duplicants want to build this solar panel, but in order to do that, they have to dig this area out, and they can't reach all of this regolith, so we're stuck with an unreachable dig. So you have to make sure that you can get up there using other ways to be able to continue your progress. I had to do the same thing here by putting a ladder because the gap was a bit too far for them to be able to dig out enough space for this next bunker door. And regolith continues to make our life absolutely wonderful by entombing our rover and noosh inside of a solar panel. Hats off to Clay. We've all seen the animation for an entombed dupe. I've never seen an entombed rover. I'm also in the process of putting in a whole lot of ladders. Some of these on the bottom weren't really necessary, but I figured we might as well get rid of all this regolith and mafic rock, sort of make the place look nice. And oh my goodness, I forgot about the supercoolant. Yeah, let's go try to mop some of this up. I also forgot about the ESS Explorer. Poor llama's just been sitting in orbit this whole time. They're living their best life, really. Remember, they are a suit-wearing rocketry and operating dupe, so they were made for space living. But I will send them back home. Sorry about that, llama. We're making pretty good headway, and I wanted to highlight once again how awesome Rover is. Despite Clay not giving us another battery, Rover continues to work past its shutdown time. The key here being, you can't restart or stop the game. As soon as I go to the main menu, this rover will perish. And I don't want this rover to perish, because this rover is the goodest boy. But notice their chemical battery has 0 joules, and they just won't stop. So as long as this episode continues, Rover will not perish. I've started putting in the space scanners, but notice that this space scanner's network quality is only 10%, which means it could wait till the very last minute before it's able to detect whether there's an incoming meteor or not. Not great. There's a few reasons why it's only 10%, most notably because it doesn't have complete coverage. On the left side, it's blocked by the neutronium, and on the right side, it has our sun blocks. You see what I did there? But since we now have all these solar panels and bunker doors, I don't think we necessarily need these. So I'm going to deconstruct these 2 blocks, which then increases our scan network quality to 24%, which gives us a little bit more time. As you can see, it'll now detect objects from 48 seconds to 200 seconds versus the earlier 20 or 21 seconds. But we can make this even better by adding another space scanner. Now, because these 2 scanners are pretty close, it's not going to increase it too much, but I'm going to need 2 anyways, because this space scanner is going to be responsible for looking for meteor showers. I also need to be able to open the doors when I have interplanetary payloads coming in. Hilarious enough, this second space scanner only increased the network quality by 1%. It might actually be a little bit higher if some of these bunker doors would open. I suppose we can start putting in the automation for the bunker doors, even if they're unpowered and will take way too long to open and close. Oh, look, it's a payload. We'll have to build a ladder to be able to grab that. Now that they have the automation and they're receiving the green signal saying it's all clear from the space scanners, they start to open. But notice how long it takes for them to open. that is not ideal if you have an impending meteor coming down to strike. Hence the reason why our next step is going to be powering this whole setup. I think we're going to start by putting in a bunch of tiles here. And while we will start with just a few jumbo batteries, that way I can start storing some of this power here. Eventually, I'm going to have to put in some power transformers to separate these into distinct networks, but for now, I do not care if they end up overpowering one of these circuits. In fact, I'll go ahead and put the heavy watt wire in now, just like this, and then still connect it with the conductive wire until I can be able to cool a transformer. And I will use all our iron to make a bunch of conductive wire all the way up here. And once again, we're going to have to separate into distinct networks using the power transformers, but I can't cool them yet. For that, I'm going to need this setup here, which we're getting closer. Next step is just going to be vacuuming this out. And since this is such a long run, I'm just going to set up a quick wheel and battery. And there we go. Now all this is going to take a little while because we still have more construction, but not to mention that I just put down a whole lot of conductive wire. But for now, it's a good start. We're also down to about 30-35% O2 in the oxygen tank. Just something to keep our eyes on. Oh my goodness, we're already up to 100,000 calories worth of meat. Granted, a lot of it's freezing because it's so cold, so it doesn't go off as fast, but that's still a lot. I have been looking for additional eggs. Every once in a while I'll find one that we have dug up and I just move it over here. You know what? If I can hurry up and get this online, I could get the spawn going, put a rocket port loader on this, and refill the tank for the duplicants. Oh, who's vomiting? Stan! Look, I know there's radiation out there. It's not that big of a deal. And why haven't we repaired our Atmos suits? Oh, I know why. Because this needs to be on priority 6. And apparently Josh is now vomiting. That's going to be a problem of the past as soon as they finish building all the stuff on the top level. Just takes a little bit of time. But until then, a little radiation cleansing is just fine. At the minimum, the polluted water is going to provide additional oxygen for them to breathe. I'm just going to stop mopping it up at this point. Wait until they get it all out of their system. This jumbo battery is already up to 64 degrees. That's not great. It's going to start overheating. This one's still at 22. I'm not sure what the big difference is, but I'm going to try to fix it. I've got a big chunk of ice coming. Hopefully this tile will start to melt it. Of course, that chunk is a little too big. I didn't want all that, fellas. Worst comes to worst, I'll put that bottle emptier down there and I'll splash some super coolant. In fact, let me do that now. That super coolant will take decent care of these batteries for a little while. And don't worry about the radiation vomiting. We're actually building a pool inside the rocket. Rover's being the goodest boy and dropping some super coolant. I don't need too much here. I will drop it there. And already this battery's down to 26 degrees. Let me start a mop there, and let's say here. And what's going to happen is the supercoolant is actually exchanging thermals with the ice, which is then exchanging thermals with the jumbo battery. Not to mention the supercoolant was already pretty cold, but it also exchanges with all of the tiles that it's sitting on as well. In fact, I like that cooling potential so much, I'm going to put in our first transformer right here. Actually, let me flip that around, and then I will separate from here. And now, whenever I need an additional power network, I can separate it by the transformers. As long as I dump just a little bit of supercoolant right here, and I probably lost a little bit to the vacuum of space right there, but there's plenty more where that came from. And now our power transformer's online and at minus 25 degrees, thanks to the cooling potential of about 2.5 tons worth of ice. We have an incoming meteor shower, probably about to start this cycle. And I'm not going to prevent it by shutting these doors. There's our overblown wire, by the way, as it tried to open and shut all of these doors. But the reason I'm not going to is I need to move the space scanners to make sure that they are within range of the robo-miners. Oh, it looks like we're finally getting an iron meteor shower. Very nice. What's not very nice is the amount of damage that they're doing to all of our poor solar panels. At least we didn't spend, I don't know, 20, 30 cycles building all this. It's gonna be fine. It's fine. Oh, there goes another one. And boom! Am I gonna have any solar panels that are gonna survive this? And the problem is, with the colonizer here, I can't just shut it temporarily because as soon as I do, the dupes can't get back to the rocket. It would take me forcing all the dupes into the rocket, shutting it, waiting a cycle or two for the meteors to end, and then opening it back up. Like, nobody's got time for that. So instead, I'll spend my time repairing solar panels and filling up our pool. Now that the meteor shower is over and the dupes are starting to repair all the stuff, it's time to start putting in robo-miners. There's going to be a lot of them, and it's mostly going to be the same sort of trick over and over again, except for this first and probably the last one. Because the robo-miners are going to be supporting each other, this first one needs an extra robo-miner. I'll show you what I mean here in a minute, and that is this. Hindsight being 2020, I would have made them one tile higher. As you can see, they can still reach the top of the solar panels, but then Rover and the dupes wouldn't have to duck every time they walked under them. Still no big deal. But you'll notice that each robo-miner can reach the tiles of the next robo-miner. And we do that is because when these doors shut and the meteors explode on top of the doors, and then the doors open again, all those meteors, all that regolith and debris is going to fall. You don't necessarily want a bunch of tiles stacking up this way, so you can have the robo-miner be able to dig it out from here. The only exception is this robo-miner that doesn't have a friend behind it to watch its back. So we put an extra robo-miner right here. Now in the old days, we would end up making these all out of solid tiles and then putting a little liquid here and then cooling the liquid in order to keep the robo-miner nice and chilled. We don't have to do that anymore, thanks to the wonderful advent of the conduction panel. So we'll be using conduction panels on each one of these robo-miners with the massive cooling loop in order to keep all the robo-miners from overheating. But now that we have all the robo-miners in, we can now plan out the power network. Each robo-miner takes 120 watts. Well, when you add into the fact that each door takes 120 watts, and 20 divided by 120 watts is 16.6 and some change, you know that you don't want to go above 16 devices on one network. So that's what we're going to do, is chop these into sections of 16. And the reason why we use 2000 divided by 120 is because we know the maximum load on a conductive wire is 2000 watts. In this case here, I'll include the targeting beacon and the mechanized airlock, so I know this network is going to stop right about here. So I have another transformer that I'll be able to tie in. We'll just go right down through here, bridge over the heavy watt wire, and plug into that one. And then we start counting the maximum for this power transformer, and so on and so forth until we have the whole network done. And since I had all the power transformers at the beginning of each segment, I'm actually going to move this one over. I'll get rid of a couple of batteries, but just to make it nice and clean. Well, I say all of them. This one didn't do that either, but this one's the special first network. And then for instance over here, I decided, well, since I've got the power network anyways, I'll get rid of the wheel and everything. So I'll put another power transformer right here. Anywhere I need power, I'm just going to drop another one. And then when I'm all finished, I'm going to put down a mess of a bunch of batteries to fill in the blanks. And then all we'll do is provide some active cooling for the supercoolant here. And whammo blammo, our power network will be done. I definitely need to empty some supercoolant here. Apparently I failed and had some gaps, so this battery has already gotten too hot. I'm also recombobulating a little bit of this because I wanted to put a nice tile here, and that way I can get a nice amount of supercoolant all on this row, and that way this tile will block it from emptying out into the vacuum of space. So I just needed to move the transformer over by one. I wanted to highlight this because I think it's rather important. Notice our dupes have had radiation sickness for quite some time and have been vomiting their brains out for probably about 40 cycles. It's mostly because a lot of their work is up here on the top where the radiation is the worst. But we only have 2 duplicates stressed right now, and the max is 38%. And that's all thanks to our wonderful maximum aptitude that has given each dupe minus 25% stress per cycle. And as long as I keep this mopped up, it'll even be better. And Noose stops vomiting everywhere. I am going to have to keep my eye on the temperature of this ice as we add more transformers and batteries, because I don't want 2.5 tons worth of ice exploding in here and diluting my supercoolant. It shouldn't be too bad, and hopefully by then I'll have this setup complete. But this whole process does take a while because there's quite a bit to construct. This next time that we do end up with a meteor shower though, I will for sure be sending the dupes back inside the Spacefarer module, because now that we have this much infrastructure in, I definitely don't want to spend all that extra time repairing it. As a matter of fact, with us down to 1 ton worth of oxygen in our tanks, I think I am going to crew up the Spacefarer module make sure Josh is back part of the crew, and then I'll just click summon. And that way I know everybody is inside, and then I will manually shut the doors. These robo-miners are going to have a time of it because they're about to get blasted by the rocket. But now, until the duplicates get back, I'll know that we're safe from the meteor showers. It would have been really handy if I had Rover in there to be able to move this ice. It's okay, buddy, you'll be fine. It'd also be nice to be able to give the duplicates a break from all their radiation problems. And I think that's probably a great time to end this video. We got a lot of progress done. In the next episode, when the dupes get back to Regalado, we'll complete this last little bit of construction. Why aren't you shutting? Oh, they are, just very slowly. They don't have power yet. We'll also tame this cool steam vent that'll hopefully be out of its dormancy. There's going to be a couple of slick pieces of automation that we're going to put into place to make that whole system work. And we're going to have to do that fairly quickly because I'm going to need to get the cooling loop down for this whole setup. Then we're going to concentrate on the living area for the duplicates. I hope you enjoyed this episode and the start of our 7th Planetoid. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say down in the comments below. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.